Israel's opposition said that if this ceasefire is as good as it gets, it will amount to, quote, one of the most severe strategic failures in Israeli history. None of this bodes well for a permanent end to the war, unless, that is, President Trump is about to break with Bibi Netanyahu. Somewhat lost in the excitement of Trump's vow to end Iranian civilization yesterday, New York Times released an extraordinary report on how Netanyahu made the case for war in the White House. The Israeli premier, it says, planned a simple mission with swift regime change, but it had to be now. Well, General Kane, the top US military official, reportedly told the president, "Sir, this is, in my experience, standard operating procedure for the Israelis. They oversell, and their plans are not always well developed. They know they need us, and that's why they're hard selling." All of this appears to echo the position of Vice President J.D. Vance and the former Secretary of State Antony Blinken. For several weeks now, we've been told it's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory to say that Israel dragged the US into this war. Perhaps the only people who can plausibly declare victory today are those who said the evidence suggested otherwise. To debate all of this, I'm joined by Joe Kent, the former director of the US National Counterterrorism Center, and Will Chamberlain, the senior counsel at the Article 3 Project. Well, welcome to both of you. Joe Kent, a lot of what you said when you resigned appears to have been pretty much confirmed by that New York Times report, which is extremely detailed and paints a picture of Netanyahu in the White House, in the Situation Room, with the head of Mossad appearing on a screen next to him, in which he laid out a 4-point plan for why this would work: decapitating the regime, the people would rise up, they would be too powerless to shut the Strait of Hormuz, and so on, most of which has not happened. What do you feel about the fact there's now this ceasefire, albeit it seems quite perilous one? Is it a recognition, do you think, by President Trump that he's got to get out of this?
Well, I think it's a good thing that President Trump took the opportunity to enact a ceasefire and to get both sides to the negotiating table. I think what's key, though, is that President Trump has to realize, in order to accomplish our strategic goal, which is ending this conflict, reopening the Straits of Hormuz, and maintaining the alliances that we have in the Gulf, he has got to restrain the Israelis. The Israelis have a different strategic goal than we do. They want to take down the entire regime. They don't care how long it takes. They don't care how much we have to commit in terms of blood and treasure. So the Israelis and us have parted ways in terms of strategic objectives. We have to be honest with ourselves. It sounds like, considering the fact that someone shared the origins of this war with the New York Times, that is recognized now by this administration. So the first thing that President Trump has to do in order to make sure this lasts is actually restrain the Israelis, take away key components of the military aid that we give them so that they lack the capability to go on the offense and to spoil this ceasefire. Will
Chamberlain, your response to that?
I think that's a completely incoherent idea, not merely wrong, but just incoherent. First off, it presupposes we have the ability to take away their offensive capabilities. Newsflash, they already have them. We can't just seize them. Are we going to invade Israel and take their planes? We can't. They have the F-35. They have these capabilities. Remember, they launched the 12-day war on their own. So,
no, but
even
America,
the debate
but
itself
on that point,
excuse me, that's our greatest ally. You telling me they're not going to listen?
Well, on that point, the Americans could withdraw their funding. The billions of dollars that go to the Israelis, which they use to.
Notice how Will doesn't even see that as an option. Like, that's not, that's silly talk. We can't not give them their allowance.
To fund their own military, that could just be withdrawn. So America isn't powerless. It can exercise that power.
Right, but the offensive capabilities they would need to strike Iran, they already have. They're the second biggest air force in the world today. Even if we said we're not going to give you $4 billion a year going forward, that wouldn't stop anything. And then the second point is that this is an unbelievably silly approach to foreign policy because we haven't hammered out final terms with the Iranians yet. We're still in the middle of negotiations. The idea that we would restrain our ally, who, by the way, just helped us achieve one of the greatest military victories of the modern era, we would restrain them.
Where was that victory? What victory is this guy talking about? I've been watching the news. I haven't seen any victory talk.
Instead of trying to use the threat of continued belligerence from them to extract more punitive terms from the Iranians is silly. It's just completely antithetical to how things should work.
Did I miss a mission accomplished somewhere? I didn't see it.
The idea that we need to be worried about our Gulf neighbors who would be upset if we didn't restrain the Israelis is also absurd, because our Gulf neighbors are on our side. And this war has not only solidified our position militarily, it's solidified it diplomatically, because all those countries are furious with the Iranians and are on our side and want to strengthen cooperation with both us and Israel.
Yeah, they're not mad at us at all for not defending them. No, no, no. They can't see that. Like they don't notice that we only care about Israel. Like even the countries with our bases on them, we're not defending just so we can defend Israel, and they're not mad about that at all. Will, where are you getting this from?
But what is clear from that New York Times report? It seems to be incredibly well sourced. So somebody's been talking who was in that room. What is clear from that is that the Israelis, maybe this was an honest mistake on their part, a misreading of the situation, but they certainly appear to be of the belief, if you took out the Ayatollah and some of the top people with him, that this would then lead to an uprising by the people, and that amid all this chaos, there would be no ability to close the Strait of Hormuz. Well, none of that has really...
To be fair, they can't really do an uprising while they're burying all their little girls. They blow up in the schools. So... Maybe after the funerals?
He happened. Yes, they got rid of the Ayatollah, but he's just been replaced by other similarly minded people. And then there's been no uprising by the Iranian people whatsoever. And of course, the Strait of Hormuz has been held in a kind of stranglehold by the Iranians in a very powerful way. It has to be conceded.
Dude, if the news said it, I wouldn't know it until somebody on YouTube showed it to me. I don't watch the news anymore.
Which has caused enormous damage to the global economy. They've basically controlled that strait now for 4 or 5 weeks, and it's caused hell. And none of that appears to have been predicted by the Israelis in their sales pitch to Trump to join them on this war.
Well, so I think you're overstating a number of things there. First off, the Iranian Navy is gone, right? They're controlling the strait by threatening to shoot at people, but they don't have any naval forces meaningfully in the area. And the idea, remember, they were thinking that...
Well, I guess all that oil's getting where it's supposed to go, right, Will? Guess we don't have to pay a lot for gas when we go now.
Card, which is their only trump card. That's the maximum.
But it's a very powerful card. And it's one that the Israelis did not think they had the power. Right. According to the New York Times
report, might have made a slight misjudgment on that effect. It's war. I think the Iranians made a much bigger misjudgment overall when you talk about the complete destruction of their military capability.
Right, but if you take away the Strait of Hormuz issue, then you've got overwhelming military dominance by the Americans and Israelis. Yes, the Iranians would have still attacked their neighboring Gulf states, but that would be a military conflict part of it. The fact that the Strait of Hormuz has been shut pretty much for 5 weeks, that has been an asymmetric war, which, with the best will in the world, has been wielded very successfully by the Iranians. For whatever
I don't
reason.
think so at all. I think that's actually been wielded quite poorly. 2 weeks ago, let me finish my point, Joe, and then you can speak. 2 weeks ago, the Iranians were saying, we're not going to give up the Strait of Hormuz unless we get a permanent peace deal, a permanent commitment to non-aggression and reparations. What are they trading it for as of yesterday? 2 week ceasefire, no promises. They can't even extract a commitment from the Israelis to stop fighting Hezbollah. That's how badly they're beaten.
Okay. Well, Joe, he called you silly and incompetent, I think, earlier. So this is your chance to respond.
So prior to this war, the Straits of Hormuz were transited by anybody trading oil for free. Post-war, the Iranians are going to be able to extract a fee. That's one of their negotiating chips they have now.
No, they won't.
Prior to the war, the Ayatollah that we killed was actually at the negotiating table with us. The reason why none of this was taken into account is because the Israelis didn't really care about what would happen to the Straits of Hormuz. They didn't care what would happen to our Gulf allies. Our Gulf allies right now still technically are with us, but the fact that we were unable to provide them with security guarantees lowers our status in the region, potentially could threaten the petrodollar in the region. And so right now we're in a weaker position because we listened to a foreign government that had a different strategic goal in mind than we did. So it's great that we got the ceasefire. We need to maintain that ceasefire, and we have to actually withhold things from the Israelis, which we can do. The Israelis do have a modern air force, but they rely on us for a lot of the logistics, the refueling, in order to be able to reach into Iran. So we very much are in the driver's seat of what we.
Well, that's not true, Joe. That's just obviously false because we didn't help them with refueling.
No, it's 100% true. They can't reach into. They cannot reach into Israel. I've actually been in the military, man. I've been part of these operations.
Then
Have you?
explain how they did the 12-day war without refueling. Right? If we weren't participating in the offensive operations,
we helped them out a good.
Struck the hell.
Will is telling the guy who was in the cabinet of the administration that was in place when that happened. That's how arrogant this shithead is.
Well, we helped them out a good deal with logistics. They can't sustain operations without us. They wouldn't be able to continue to sustain operations all the way into Iran with conventional military forces in any meaningful way without our support. We have to pull that back. We also have to pull back their ability to go on the offense outside of their borders because it's going to interfere with the peace that we're trying to achieve. Right now, we're paying for their defense, we're paying for the offense, and also in terms of our status in the region and our ability to keep commerce and oil flow going out of the Straits of Hormuz and the Middle East, all of that is being negatively affected by us listening to a foreign government. So we have to put Israel back in the junior partner role if we're going to accomplish our strategic
Why couldn't you
objectives.
persuade Pete Hegseth of any of this?
Well, I tried. So,
Why couldn't you convince a Zionist not to do Zionist shit? That's what we're trying to do right now, dummy.
therefore,
And he didn't agree with you, and he has better intelligence than you. You weren't privy to any of this stuff. Like, you just don't know that.
Yes, if you can't talk your boss out of doing what he wants to do, then you just have low intelligence, I guess.
That's why you're now on the outside doing podcasts instead of inside the administration trying to shape policy. You don't know.
Well,
You didn't persuade him.
from the inside. Like, look, man, my letter of resignation has been out there. What's important right now is that we support President Trump in getting this peace deal and making sure it actually sticks. The problem is, as confirmed by the New York Times, that was well sourced from within the West
No, it
Wing,
wasn't.
the
You guys are
Israelis were
mischaracterizing the New
in
York
the
Times article.
driver's seat
Back it up. Why wasn't it? They asked you that earlier. You didn't have any answers. How is it not sourced?
for all of this. Well, if you read the article, I think it's pretty
out of
evident. You know how
interest,
leaks work in Washington, D.C.
Okay, Will,
with the
Will,
New York Times.
Well, if you say
Yeah.
if you say it wasn't well sourced, Will, which part are you contesting?
Oh, no, it was well sourced. You guys are just mischaracterizing how much influence Israel had based on what was written in that article.
What?
Which was Israel gave a
Did you read
presentation.
it?
Yeah, I read it completely. And then after the Israelis were offline, right, then you had the meeting between the U.S. principals,
Yeah.
in which John Ratcliffe and others were talking about, the Israelis are overselling their ability to achieve regime change. That's probably not going to happen. But they said, on what we've thought for a while is when it comes to missiles and when it comes to their ballistic shield and when it comes to their Navy, we have the capability to do that, and we should do that. And so the idea that we didn't get suckered into a regime change war. From the outset, American goals did not include regime change. From Trump's very first
Donald
speech,
Trump
to every
literally
public statement
talked
by
about
Hegseth and
regime
Rubio.
change early on.
Several
Literally.
times.
Donald Trump literally
Pull the
said
tweets up.
Regime change was an objective
You
of the
can pull
war.
the tweets
Fact
up.
check me on that after. He never did.
You don't think Donald Trump ever mentioned regime change?
Incorrect. I didn't say that. I said it wasn't a military objective
Donald
of the
Trump
war. He
is
said it would
still
be nice to
claiming
have,
today
but it's not.
that
Evidence
he has
incoming.
affected- He's
There we
claiming
go.
today he's affected regime change. What are you
is
talking
that?
about?
He's affected it. That's because he's basically saying we killed all the senior leadership, which we did, by the way, in an unprecedented fashion.
So who's running the country?
But that doesn't mean it was
Hang
an
on, who's
original
running-
military
who is
objective
running
of the war.
Iran right
Fact check
now?
me on this, man.
Who's
Go
running-
look at his original
He just
statement.
fact checked you,
I
you
fact
dummy.
checked
It would be
He
nice to
changed-
have, but it's not an objective
Trump
of the war.
changed his goalposts every 10 seconds. That's been part of
I mean,
the
this
big-
has been remarkably consistent from Hegseth, Rubio on down. Go look at their public statements. What
Consistent.
did they say?
How many different ideas did they float out there to see which one could grab a hold? They were desperate to invade this country. And I predicted it back then. Whenever they said they were going to do it because they were shooting protesters, while we're shooting protesters, I said, we're going looking for WMDs again. I didn't know they would go to nukes, but they did say, I said they were going to go looking for WMDs, just like in Iraq, and that's where we're at now.
An official objective of Operation Object Fury is regime change.
Why
No.
did America launch a preemptive strike against Iran? Will?
Oh, to essentially prevent them from building up a further ballistic missile capability as a shield behind
No,
which
that
they would
wasn't
be
the
able to
reason.
develop their
That
nuclear
was
weapons
not the
program.
reason
It was to force our hand.
That's the
given
core
by
reason.
that was not the reason given by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
False. Go look it up, man. He said it over and over and over again.
On camera, he said when he was first asked the reason the United States launched a preemptive strike against Iran was because another country, brackets Israel, had indicated they were going to attack Iran, and therefore the Americans knew there would be attacks against some of their
But Pierce, you're debating a Zionist. You can't believe your eyes when you debate a Zionist. They want you to debate off what they got in their head.
interest in the Middle East, so they got in first. Marco Rubio's
That was the
own
reason for the
mouth
timing,
on camera.
not the reason for the strike. The strategic reason for the strike, which Rubio explained in that very same press conference. I remember the exact one you're talking about. It's like a gaggle, and I think he's in Congress after having a meeting with people. This is very early in the war. He says the reason for the strike is to prevent them from developing their ballistic missile shield further. The reason for the timing, like why today, why February 28th, was the fact that they had this intelligence about the meeting of Ayatollah Khamenei and everybody else, and that Israel was going to go ahead with that under any circumstances. So we should do it now. But I mean, go again.
So Israel forced our hand to make the attack now. Thank you.
And go back and look at that. I know exactly what press conference you're talking about, and I don't think your memory you are remembering one piece of it, but you're not remembering.
It's a pretty significant piece when the Secretary of State of the United States, on record, says that the reason for the preemptive strike by the United States was because Israel was attacking Iran. And then we hear from Antony Blinken, one of his predecessors, that Netanyahu had tried to sell this to both Biden and Obama. And when they both rejected the opportunity to join him in attacking Iran, guess what? Israel didn't attack. So it looks like he got third time lucky with Trump, who went along with it, but had Trump
finally got one dumb enough to listen to him, right? Just took one idiot to believe him.
Said no, I don't think Israel would have attacked.
Well, but then why did they strike in the 12-day war?
The only reason
They did that without
happened.
American
let's talk
offensive.
let's talk about the 12-day war. Let me bring Joe back in this. The 12-day war is fascinating because I distinctly remember, and I'm sure Will remember it differently to me, but I remember Donald Trump at the end of the 12-day war saying that this had put back any aspirations by the Iranians to build a nuclear weapon. Decades. That we had obliterated their nuclear capabilities. It was done.
But don't believe that propaganda now. Back then, that's old propaganda. Believe the current propaganda and just forget you even saw that last propaganda. That's the fucking mentality with these Zionists.
Gone. And here we are 9 months later having to launch a full-fledged war in Iran because the threat remains apparently not just the same, but so imminent that America had to act immediately. Now, try and make sense of that for me, Joe.
Well, this is what the Israelis do. They've always wanted this regime change war. And so they continually use their influence through official channels and then also through their echo chamber in the media to move the red line. They did this with the enrichment issue. President Trump initially said, our policy is no nuclear weapons for Iran. The Iranian Supreme Leader agreed. There was a lot of space there for negotiations. There was negotiations that were taking place for several months. Then the pro-Israel lobby basically came in and convinced President Trump that the new red line was zero enrichment. 12-day war happens, Operation Midnight Hammer happens. We take away the ability for them to enrich. The Iranians withhold their proxies. They don't retaliate in any meaningful way. They get right back to the negotiating table. And then we're hearing basically what Will just said. Oh, now we have to go in and attack Iran because of this ballistic missile capability. So the red line moves again every time Israel needs a new justification.
Got up to roadside bombs. That was one of the things he was doing. We're not going to not do this unless they get rid of roadside bombs. Now, I'm not a fan of roadside bombs, but if it's in a country we're not going to put any boots on the ground in, I really don't care if they're there. Like, I don't really see the issue. But if you're planning on, like, you're kind of telling them what you're going to do here, right? Why would you care about their roadside bombs if you're not going to put boots on those grounds?
For the war, and they get the outcome that they want by using their pressure network and their media echo chamber and their official engagements with the U.S. government. They were still worried that we were going to get a deal with the Iranians. And so therefore, they went ahead and said, hey, we're going to preemptively go into Iran and attack, and knowing that this attack would be against the regime. Iran's reaction to an attack directly against the regime would be to enact their contingency plan, which would be targeting our bases in the region. So the only actual imminent threat that Iran posed was the attack threat by the Israelis against Iran. There was no imminent Iranian threat attack against us.
No, I don't think there was for a moment. Will Chamberlain, I mean, as we sit here today debating this, the regime remains in place. Trump wants to argue it's different people, therefore it's a new regime, but it's the same people. It's the same regime. It's just the faces of
minus the 100 senior leaders who are all dead.
So a few of the leaders have gone, but they've been replaced by others. But they've been replaced by others from the same regime with the same.
Who believe the same things are worse, right? Now they want nukes. That's what they. Jesus Christ.
Ideology. It would be like saying you've decapitated the Trump regime, but he's replaced by a bunch of people called Trump. It's like, it's kind of.
I mean, that's what happened in Venezuela, right? We effectively took out one person in Venezuela, and now we have a cooperative
regime
government.
hasn't changed in Venezuela. All that's changed is the president got picked up in the middle of the night and put in a New York prison cell. But the regime's continued. His own number two is running it. So the regime is still there. So I think we should be clear about what regime change means, right? With my quaint old head on, regime change means you change the regime. Not that you just take out a few people at the top of it and they get replaced by other people from the same regime. Secondly, the enriched uranium remains in Iran. None of that has been secured by either the Americans or Israelis as we speak. Thirdly, the Straits of Hormuz remain under the control of the Iranians, which they weren't. It wasn't in control of it before this war started. And it is, despite what you say, they are now charging money. Apparently, they want to charge $1 a barrel, was the last thing I read. And Trump's all for it because it's going to make everyone rich. So they've got the control of that. They've continued to fire rockets, it seems, at some of their Gulf state neighbors. So I'm looking at this historic victory.
Yeah, that's what Will Chamberlain started this debate by saying, that Israel helped us accomplish the greatest military victory in modern times. And you just heard what has resulted, where Iran was before we did it and where they're sitting at right now, and they'll still try to tell you it's a victory.
Okay. And I'm thinking, well, where's the victory? What is the victory? Because I don't see it. And forgive me if I take with a pinch of salt this idea
let's try this by historical analogy.
Let me finish my point. You can respond. That apparently we're now supposed to believe that rather like 8-9 months ago, Iran's capability of building a nuclear weapon has been destroyed, like it was 9 months ago. Well, why can't they just pop up again in 9 months? They've still got all the enriched uranium. What's going to stop them? So look, I put it to you that the charge sheet against the claim of historic victory is pretty big.
All right, so
I'm going to concede Pierce is a terrible moderator, but I actually agree with what he's saying here. And Joe Kent's not really known for his debate skills, so I am happy he's doing this, but it is terrible moderation. It's bad form.
I'll deal first with that minor point on the enriched uranium, right? President Trump has said untrue. No. I mean, in relation to you saying we lost the war. Right.
So I didn't say America's lost the war. I'm disputing the
claim. You didn't think it's a big victory.
I'm disputing the claim to historic victory, given the checklist I just presented.
Well,
you see, Will's 401k went up quite a bit, so it's a victory for Will. But for America, we don't see it as that. Like I don't have a 401k that buys into all the weapons manufacturers, so it didn't do shit for me. And I don't think my tax dollars are really meant to go over there and increase your 401k, Will.
Let's imagine, if you will, it's January 1942, a month after Hitler declared war on the United States in the aftermath of Pearl Harbor. And the current military state of affairs is the entire German Navy is at the bottom of the sea. The Luftwaffe is destroyed. There's complete Allied air superiority over Germany. Hitler, Goering, Bormann, and Himmler are all dead in a massive military strike. And yet the German press is claiming the Germans have managed to shut down trade via some rockets in the Danish Straits. Who's winning? Is that people have lost context about what it means to win a war.
I've lost the plot with that analogy. I'm sorry.
In 5 weeks, we have just decimated Iranian military capability.
In that World War II scenario, did the Nazis also find a way to where they could cripple the world fuel supplies so that gas shoots up $3 a gallon? Did they do that back then? Your little analogy, Will, or is that something we're just going to ignore that part?
We struck 13,000 targets, and they managed to hit a single plane, and they couldn't even capture the soldiers that fell out of that plane. It's one of the most lopsided military conflicts in history.
On the neighboring Gulf
and the fact that you have a temporary restraint of trade and an increase in gas by $1 a gallon for a month does not change that in the slightest.
Really?
Yes, 100%.
So you're
it's
looking
a massive
at this
military victory.
Okay, Joe, this is a great victory, and I've lost the plot.
Oh, yay, we won.
The great victory is the fact that we have a ceasefire, and this could have been much, much worse. However, as opposed to making some obscure...
Before he gets into it, we went in there so that they wouldn't be enriching uranium. And now that's on the talking plan. That's what they're negotiating, how much they can enrich uranium. How is that a victory? If our reason for going in, the whole reason they were giving us for going in, is not happening now, and they're going to actually negotiate where they can enrich uranium and get a nuclear program. How is that a victory? How does that make us safer? If they were dangerous with nukes before, why are they not dangerous when they're going to get them now? I'm just curious. This makes no sense.
World War II reference, because everything always has to be about World War II. Let's just compare the situation between now and just a month ago before the war. The Straits of Hormuz, before this last iteration of war kicked off, the Straits of Hormuz were open for commerce. People and companies could transit that for free. Iran didn't have a stranglehold on that. Our GCC alliance was completely intact. There was still a guarantee of American security. That hadn't been fractured. We had a regime inside of Iran, although they were not the best. It's not exactly what we wanted. They had a prohibition on building a nuclear weapon, and they were involved in active negotiations with us. They were closely adhering to a strict escalation ladder. Their proxies were not attacking us. No, that's exactly what happened. They
had
were not
60%
building a
enriched
nuclear
uranium.
weapon.
What do you think they were using that for? Medical purposes?
As a deterrent against the bloodthirsty monsters who already have a nuclear weapon program that they stole from America. Ah, yes. Thank you, Robert Maxwell. You fucking
If they wanted a
sellout.
bomb, they had decades, long before President Trump ever became the president, to develop a nuclear weapon. There was a prohibition by the Ayatollah, which was a reasonable and calculated approach. They didn't want to become like Libya. They didn't want to become like Saddam. They had reached a point where they would keep the capability, but not develop a nuclear weapon.
With Witkoff,
And they were in negotiations with us, and we were not at.
Oh, wait. I thought they were liars. So they tell you what they've got it up to. 60% is not enough to make a nuclear weapon. So why is that a bad thing that they're being honest and telling us what they have? Isn't that what you're supposed to go do in negotiations? Isn't that like what we want?
And we won't give up our enrichment rights, and we won't give you up anything diplomatically.
But we were at the negotiating table with them. There was a potential for a deal.
Fake. The Iranian nuclear archive, which is
now fast forward to where we're at
it's
right
just
now.
nonsense.
Look at the Straits of Hormuz. Look at the GCC.
Let me ask Will a question, which is, Will, does Israel have nuclear weapons?
Yes, almost certainly. I mean, I don't think they haven't officially claimed it, but
why
almost
don't we?
certainly
Why don't?
Wait. That's our greatest ally. What do you mean they haven't officially claimed it? Why would they not claim it to their greatest ally? Why would they not tell their besties? They don't tell us when they have nuclear weapons and they get us to go fight wars to stop other people from getting nuclear weapons? Huh.
We know for a fact.
Because they don't want to say so, because there's American
Why do
statutes, I
they get a
believe, that would
pass?
create
Why do they
issues.
get a pass about that?
Well, because they're our ally and Iran's our enemy.
What makes them our ally? Lying to us? Oh, wait, they give us intelligence, which is also a lie, right? There's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, right? All these other wars we get into, that's for Israel. Why do y'all keep acting like that's something we want?
See, it's
so
because
our friends,
we're the good guys.
Okay,
and
that's very
Iran's the
interesting.
bad guys.
A very interesting admission. So our friends don't need to be transparent about their nuclear
They lied to us.
capability, but our
Yeah, it's good to
enemies,
be America's friend.
but our enemies do.
Yes,
Wow.
that's exactly how it works.
Well, that's
Drink in the smugness. Just drink it in. This is what I was advertising, the smugness.
Because we have the B-2 bomber and they
brazen
don't.
hypocrisy, isn't it?
No, it's only hypocrisy if you don't have a normative view of whether the United States is good and Iran is bad.
I don't think
So you're abnormal if you don't think that your allies should be honest with you. You're abnormal.
there's
If you have a normative view of those
there
things,
is
it's a
no
very simple
single,
question. Yes,
there is
bad people
no
get to do
single
less
good
things than good
reason
people.
why Israel should be allowed to refuse to admit whether it has nuclear weapons. There's no
Because-
reason. They should
Well,
be
call the international law police.
They
Like,
should- they should
I mean,
be-
again, they're a core ally of the United States, and the United States is the most powerful country in the world. This whole multipolarity talk is just silly. There's a unipolar hegemon in the world. It's the United States, and we're also very benevolent. And so Israel, our friend, does it. Gets
When you
things,
say
gets to do
America
things that
is
the
when you
Iranians
say
don't.
okay,
Because Will Chamberlain says so.
That's the way the world works.
when you say America is benevolent, how does that sit with the President of the United States 2 days ago talking about the imminent destruction of an entire civilization?
Oh, you mean like death to America, death to Israel, right? Like
No.
Oh, so some poor person who has no way to affect anything in our country, but they're upset with us because we drop bombs on them and they say death to America. That's on the same level as the president of the United States with a nuclear button on his desk saying he's going to do it. You think that's the same thing, Will? You think that's the same thing?
I'm
dealt
talking
with
about
for 30
Donald Trump.
years.
Talking about
Trump
Donald
throws
Trump
one
saying it is.
post out
I'm
and
talking
everybody
about
loses their
Donald
crap
Trump
in the middle of a
I'm talking
negotiation
about
and
Donald
signs
Trump.
a ceasefire within 8
I'm
hours.
talking
I mean,
about
come on.
Donald Trump threatening to annihilate 90 million people in his
P.T.
own words.
McFarland had it right yesterday.
In his
You
own
guys all
words
took
on
the
his
bait on
post.
that.
Do you not care about that?
I just see it as negotiating bluster. Trump's been doing this stuff for 40
What's a
years.
threatened genocide?
I mean, that's exactly what the Iranians have been doing to us. What do you,
Trump's been threatening like genocide for 40 years. Man, why did they let him go on all those TV shows and be a game show host?
they had a clock in the middle of their downtown
So
saying
America
that they were
should
going to
be as
destroy the entire country of
amoral.
Israel.
America should be amoral, if not as immoral as its enemies. So what you're saying?
We should be sufficiently ruthless to get our negotiated pieces that actually make sense, which we seem to have done here. Apparently, this
Are
focused
you
the
aware
Iranians'
that-
mind, and
are
made
you
them realize
aware
they
that-
should come to the table.
Are you
So it's terrorism when they do it. When we do it, that's just good policy. Okay.
aware that threatening to
Sure.
commit an act of genocide in itself could be presented as a war crime?
I think that would be frivolous.
Really?
But again, send the International Law Police to the White House if you want.
Joe Ken, what's remarkable?
So because you have too much power, you see how this problem with this all comes back to Epstein. Trump didn't want the elites to lose their power, because if the elites ever had to get arrested and go to jail like us commoners, I mean, you just couldn't get shit done that way. That's where we're at now. We're attacking with a war criminal. That's the people who investigate war criminals. Like, they put people in prisons for that, unless they're like best friends with America. Then you can't do anything. You just got to let them, because they got a nuke they're lying about.
Remarkable is there's a kind of arrogance to the way Will is talking. Like, none of this matters. I think it does matter. I've known Trump a long time. I consider him a friend, but on this, I think he's lost the plot. And I think the idea that from the White House, you issue a statement in your own words threatening the annihilation of an entire civilization, an entire country of 90 million Iranians, I thought was disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful, and could well be a crime.
And Pierce is a degenerate. And if he thinks that, yeah, that means even more.
I'm glad that President Trump's tactic worked out and we have a ceasefire. I think what's critical is that we make sure that we keep the Straits of Hormuz open, get the negotiating table. We have to hold back Israel to make that happen. If our goal was to make sure that Iran didn't get a nuclear weapon, or that other states that we're adversarial with get a nuclear weapon, we just set a horrible example here, because Iran showed that they were going to play ball with us, that they were in the negotiation process, that they just wanted some enrichment. And yet we came in and we killed the leader that put that prohibition on. The lesson that the other people who are coming up in the ranks and the Iranian regime have learned is that they better get a nuclear weapon. Otherwise, this is going to happen to them too. Actually, one of the most vindicated countries in this whole exchange has been North Korea, who obtained a nuclear weapon for this very reason. So if we want to make sure that countries that we're adversarial with, or rogue countries, don't try to develop a nuclear weapon, the second one of them gets to the negotiating table, the last thing that we should do is go and launch a regime change war, a decapitation strike against that leadership. So I think the lesson learned here is that now this galvanized, harder generation of IRGC officers and Ayatollahs are going to take over Iran. They better get a nuclear weapon. And that's going to be a major problem for us going forward. So that's why we need to take this round of negotiations very seriously. I hope President Trump used that talk, that bluster to get them to the negotiating table. But there's only so many different times that you can use that. So the next time, if these negotiations don't go well and President Trump says, like, I'm going to annihilate you, that might not have the exact same effect.
Well,
so
it won't have.
I think we have to be very
The point-
careful with our language.
That's the point, Will. You know, I made the point yesterday. You become the boy that cried wolf, the emperor with no clothes. If you say we're going to wipe out an entire civilization and then nothing happens, well, you know, you become a bit of a lame duck in terms of your threats. I mean, I would put to you this.
Did you want him to follow through?
No, of course not.
Okay.
We wanted him not to make them, Will. We want to not be involved in anything in Iran. That's what we really want, Will, since you're concerned about it.
Okay, good. Just checking.
Of course not. But here's what's interesting. Trump welcomed the 10-point plan as if it was somehow brand new, which it wasn't. But the 10-point plan, which he says is very workable in terms of the negotiations, let's just go through this. And I'll ask you, how many of these do you think are acceptable? Number one, the Iranians want commitment to non-aggression. Number two, Iran's control over the
This
Strait
is
of
just
Hormuz.
totally misconceived.
This is what they're negotiating. We are negotiating from the losing position, Will. That's what we're trying to tell you.
Like
Let
from
me
the
finish.
outset, he said that the 10 points, he just truthed about this. The
Let me
10 points
finish.
that the reporters are saying, the ones you're quoting from, are not the basis on which he said.
Well,
would
these
be a
are the
basis
10
for
points, according to the Iranian media.
Yeah, it's not what Trump has agreed to, and he's repeatedly said this is not the thing he's workable. And he put out a slew of truths today saying he's going to continue to insist full dismantlement of the Iranian nuclear program, return of the highly enriched uranium, which again, this whole idea that there was a peaceful fatwa. Remember, they had 60% enriched uranium, 11 kilograms.
We which is not enough to make a nuclear weapon, which is what the Ayatollah said he would keep them from doing before you murdered him.
450 kilograms worth of it, enough for 11 bombs. Like
So
they
when
didn't
Trump
have
says he
that one. It
welcomes the
wasn't
10-point
intact.
plan, in fact, he doesn't at all.
You know
What?
You notice how nice it is that like they tell us that they have all this stuff, like almost like what an ally would do, right? And a good ally would tell you if they had nuclear weapons, right? If I go to a parade, I went to a parade with a buddy, and I told him before we went, I was like, I got a knife in my pocket. I'm just letting him know in case shit goes down. Like I've got that. Like I don't want it. It's not like a thing, but it's just a courtesy. Like your friends should tell you when they're armed.
He's looking for, I think the basis for the negotiations is something that's much more favorable to the United States.
Okay.
And
So
Freezer
why
Post
would he?
has clarified that.
So why would he say then he welcomes the 10-point plan?
Well, I think he was thinking of a different plan in his mind. That's the simple
Oh,
answer.
come
But
off
like,
it.
Oh, so he's incompetent again, right? He's back to incompetent now. Okay.
Future Post,
You know what? The
further
worst
Post
thing
had
about
So only Will knows what's going on. Even Trump doesn't know what he means. He's mistaken too. Will knows what's going on everywhere.
clarified that's not what he was thinking
The
of.
worst thing
and I don't
about
know why
all
on
this-
earth he would agree to that.
The-
And it doesn't.
www. What would Will do?
the
Makes sense.
torturous knots that people have pulled on with their
You
own.
can literally just read his truth feed. He's like, and
not truthful.
White House rapid response on this. They've
Not
been like,
truthful.
His
no,
truth
this
feed,
isn't true.
ironically-
Obviously, it's not true because if Iran was getting these kind of concessions out of the United States, they'd have also been able to save Hezbollah, but they can't even do that.
Okay, well, actually, it turns out that right now, Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz again and says it will not reopen as long as Israel's attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Which was on that 10-point list that Will just told you they're not even negotiating on. So which one are you going to believe? Since Trump admitted that was the 10-point plan, I don't know why this is even a question here. That's the issue here. They're going back and they're sending JD Drew over there. What do you not understand? JD Vance, sorry. I called him a baseball player.
So who
It
is...
sounds like they've put a new condition on the deal. Perhaps they'll get struck again. That's probably very unwise of the Iranians.
Is it, or is it wielding the most powerful tool in this whole war, which turns out to be a little piece of waterway, which they can exercise control over and strangle and paralyze the global economy?
That didn't stop the United States from striking 13,000 targets over a period of 5 weeks, completely decimating the American
but none
military,
of that
the
involved
Iranian
that-
military.
Right. So our president doesn't care if the entire world goes into like a recession just so he can go defend Israel. That's why we have a problem with it, Will.
None of that
If
involves...
it was that powerful, it should have been able to stop that from happening and force an earlier ceasefire. It wasn't.
Okay, but the Strait of
Prior to this
Hormuz
war, the
remains
Straits of
closed.
Hormuz were
So
open.
how successful is it?
I mean, honestly, you guys, everybody's just overblowing the Straits of Hormuz closure vis-a-vis the United States. We're
It's
the largest oil
literally
producer in
been
the
the
world. It's
most
good for us if oil
devastating...
prices go up.
Just to be clear, Will, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, by most experts' analysis, has been the single greatest shock in a negative way to the global economy ever. Ever.
Well, that can't be true because oil prices were higher in the at the beginning of the Ukraine-Russia war.
No,
So that just can't be true.
this has had a greater negative impact on the global economy specific to energy of anything we've seen ever. And it's going to get worse.
I mean, again, then why did the price spike even more at the beginning of the Ukraine-Russia
Listen,
war?
I know you're a facts.
I'm going to pull this up real quick just to show y'all how we have another Zionist in here, unless that's the dude from earlier. Not epic. Dave Smith dominates like arguing with a child. Well, there was about 30 or 40 people in here that only like one or two of y'all saw that. So I like the numbers we're getting here. So keep thinking that, sweetie. We'll see.
Guy, go and check the facts.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure somebody said that. I'm just saying,
No,
like, if you
all
can't
the
explain that
economic
discrepancy, I think
analysts
you're
have said
overstating
this.
things.
All the economic analysts have said the same thing. This has been the
Okay.
worst energy shock that we've ever seen, ever. But look, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure it's
What
kind
did
of
we get for it?
a trivial detail.
The
last
complete
word-
destruction of the Iranian military.
All right, look, I've got to leave it there. Joe,
They're not
last
any
word
weaker.
to you
They're
if
in a
you
stronger
want.
position.
Joe, last word to
All right, I'm going to end this here. I don't think anything else goes on in that one. Oh my God. That's the entire argument though. Don't believe your eyes or your ears, and don't believe the president that's telling you these things. Believe me. Believe me. I'm King Zionist, so just believe what I say. That's their argument every time. Even when you tell them, hey, look, here's a tweet where your president you're defending says that, they still just act like, wait, that doesn't mean it just because he said it. Like, what? How do you even debate with people this stupid? This is just stupidity, like plain and simple stupidity. And you're abnormal if you see it. They like to throw these little insults out. Like that's just abnormal for you to think that way. They'll put those in there just to brainwash you into thinking like they do. And it works on some of the dumber people. Like you saw this little broad I brought up and the guy earlier. It works on stupid people. Stupid people can easily be brainwashed. And I'm trying to work on a video about brainwashing and how it's corrupted the entire world. I'm working on it, but it's very difficult because I'm not very articulate. I need like to have a famous person I can just make fun of. That's why I get viewers. But let me turn some music on and get y'all out of here. I know it's a weekend, so y'all are ready to get back to your partying or whatever. But let me let my co-host close it out, and I will see y'all on Monday, the new one. If I don't get that video I'm talking about, if it doesn't come out on this weekend, I'll see y'all on Monday. Tell them bye, buddy. Here. I'll see y'all Monday. Peace.